Okay, introducing Michael Wilson, being interviewed by class 2-1 and 2-2. Okay, Mike, we've got a few questions for you. First up is Sam. Sam, do you want to ask Mike your question?
How did that result of the game make you feel?
So if I put a little bit of context to it so you guys understand, that game there was our semi-final to the County Cup. So if the winners of that got to play at the Amex, which is Brighton's ground, so there was quite a bit on it and stuff in relation to the league and stuff. We were a league above them, they were a league below, but we were the underdogs because we were in the bottom three of our league in relegation, and they were in the top three. So we came into that as the underdogs from everyone else, but there was quite a bit on it in terms of the winner of going to play at the Amex. So in terms of how I felt after the game was unreal, because something for me personally was play at a professional football ground. I've always wanted to do that since I was younger, and winning that game gave us the opportunity to do that, and it was a great experience. So yeah, I was in terms of what football terms you would use, I was buzzing after the game in terms of how I was feeling and everything.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good question, Sam. Well done. William, you've got a question.
Looking at your set objectives, how do you think you performed during the game?
Is that me or as a team?
Your individual performance.
I think this game was nearly 2 years ago now. So from what I still can remember it quite well and stuff. My performance was all right. I think I've already spoken to a lot of you guys as well outside of here in terms of you guys were talking to me about the match and stuff, and you actually see the style of football. You can see non-league football isn't attractive football. The way I want to play football isn't the same way as like non-league is, so you've got to adapt. So for me, my performance wasn't, in my relation, how I like to play wasn't the best, but in terms of how the manager wanted us to play and what our objective was of the game, my performance was all right, because when you analyse the game, there's a lot of times I get on the ball and I clip it into corners. In non-league, that's seen as good because you're pushing their back line back and you're literally getting yourself up the pitch. So a lot of times I had done that, which was, from everyone else, that's seen as a good thing. But in terms of how I like to play, or how I used to play football, was I wouldn't have liked that. So my personal performance, I wouldn't say was amazing, but in terms of the objective of the team, it was quite a solid performance in terms of what the objectives were.
All right, thanks.
That answer your question, Will?
Huh?
Did that answer your question, yeah?
Yeah.
Good stuff. Luca, you've got a question.
Yeah, so Michael, what areas of your game would you like to improve on?
So the areas I wanted to improve on back then specifically was probably becoming more athletic. So I want to be more powerful and explosive. So when you get on the ball, my only option isn't just to pass the ball. Something I want to work on is be able to break lines by dribbling. So being explosive where you can change direction to beat your opposition and break lines that way. Because the way I play is all the time just get it and pass it, where there's actually opportunities where you can drive in with the ball, where you can actually attract opposition players out of position, and then you can play around them that way instead of just always just passing it. Maybe dribble and break lines by driving. My shooting is an area I want to improve on. I don't know if the whole game, I think I might have got one shot in there. So that's something from the role I'm playing I need to improve on, was my shooting and stuff like that, to be able to improve my stats in terms of shooting. My range of passing isn't too bad, so I wouldn't say that's a massive area. I think they're the two main areas for me, would be the shooting, but also having being able to adapt my game by not just being able to pass it, but also be able to dribble with the ball and drive and be more athletic.
Excellent. Kieran, you've got a question.
How do you plan to reach your targets of improvement?
So I would use goal setting. So I'd break down my goals. So I'd have a long-term goal. For example, is I say improve my left foot or improve my shooting. So that would be my long-term goal. I'd then break it down of how I'm going to improve it. So my short-term goals could be I might do 2 extra sessions a week, specifically working on that area. So then away from the team I play with, I'll go away and do my own stuff twice a week. That would be my short-term goals. And then my medium-term goals could be in a month, saying I want to be at a certain stage of my shooting on my left foot, and then eventually I'll be reaching my long-term goal, for example, 4, 5, 6 months time of achieving, improving and enhancing my left foot and and my shooting. That was how I'd go about achieving my goals of the areas I want to improve.
Thank you.
That's good. Just quickly, Michael, on that point, I was writing some notes down there. How do you assess when you're setting goals? How do you assess your goals?
That's a good question, to be fair. It's a difficult one to answer because I think depending on what you're improving on depends. So I think quite a lot of it could come psychologically. So if I want to improve my left foot, psychologically, I'm going to know when I feel more confident with it. Could just be the way I stand on it and the way I kick the ball, my technique and stuff like that. So psychologically, I can assess myself how much more comfortable I feel. And I can visually see just by observing myself when, say, for example, I pass ball with my left foot or the long range passing with my left foot, I can see myself if it's improving or not. But in relation to shooting, I think it would be more the case of your stats would speak for yourself. So then when you go to your club, if you're shooting, say, for example, before I set this goal, I only scored 2 goals in a season. That next season, I'd be aiming for 6, 7 goals, for example. That could be an obvious thing of saying I've improved that area for the stats. So it's all dependent on the area you want to improve on, I would say.
So mostly you can see yourself and feel yourself improving. So that'd be more of an observational analysis, or a self-analysis.
Yeah, I think with the left foot specifically as an example, I would say so. With the shooting, I wouldn't.
All right, cool. That's brilliant. Gloddy, you had a question.
What system did you play during that game?
So we actually changed our system. I just remember we actually changed our formation changed slightly, but the way we played was still the same. So usually we play a 4-3-3. So our formation would be a 4-3-3 with one holding. However, we moved into a diamond in that game. So we overloaded it where we had me as the 4. We had 2 8s, which 2 players were playing as an 8, 2 8s, and then we had 1 10. So we overloaded the middle, but we still, in terms of the way we played and everything, was still the same because we have the pace up front. We were still playing very direct into the corners, so that didn't change at all. But the slight change of formation was the only thing off the top of my head what we did change. But in terms of the way we played and our strategy, was the exact same thing. You'll probably see a few times in my analysis of my game, I keep trying to, when I go long into the corners, I'm trying to hit the same side, which that player there, I know how he plays. He's very quick. And they had quite a stiff back line where they weren't very mobile when the ball went over them or around the sides of them. So our manager sort of probably already knew that from knowing those personnel. So our strategy going into the game was that.
Gabs, you've got a question on systems as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I was going to ask if you liked that system, if you did, why, and if not, why did you not like it?
So yeah, I like it. I think for the way I personally like to play with getting on the ball and stuff, we overloaded the middle, meaning there was quite a lot of time I got on the ball and stuff, and there was always an option when I got on the ball where our shape we usually play with the 4-3-3 and I'm sitting holding. I like that as well because I can drop in and get on the ball. The strategy we play in terms of the way we play and everything, I don't really like. I can see now through experience it's effective, but I personally don't enjoy that way at all. And probably from looking at my game, there's times where I drop in and I don't get on the ball and stuff on a 3G pitch where there's so much time to get on the ball. So then it's sort of, you just get out of the habit of going to get the ball. So then straight away from a goal kick, you're not even trying to get on the ball. You're just preparing yourself to get compact, ready to win the second balls. So in terms of the system and the way we play, I don't really enjoy it. But our formation, if it's played the way I like, the style I like to play, I do like it.
Thank you.
Excellent. Luke, you got a question on that as well, haven't you?
Yeah. What system did the other team play?
So off the top of my head, they were in, their formation was either a 4-2-3-1 or it was a 4-3-3 because we overlooked in the middle by we had an overload in the middle by 1. They had 2 wide players who kept relatively wide. They had a target man. They had 4 at the back. So I'd say it's a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 as they had 2 more holding. I don't know if that's because they were trying to match up against our team, and that's how they altered it. But in terms of how they played and everything, watching the game, they were quite direct and they were trying to hit their front man very quickly. So in terms of the way they're playing, when you look at it, they kept trying to hit their target man. In the second half, they were actually, I don't know if you guys watched the second half, but they were more successful with it. So they used the personnel of their players, which changed the style they played and everything. So they were quite a direct side, hitting the front man straight away.
Thank you.
Lewis has got a really interesting question about the performance level of the sports continuum. Lewis.
What key attributes do you need to play football at the performance level of the sports continuum?
I think it's dependent on positions. I think key attributes, I think from playing that level is. Do you mean like skill attributes?
It can be skill attributes, yeah.
Also, physical attributes, psychological attributes. There's lots of different things. I think, Lewis, that's a really good question.
I think that's that bit of the physical and psychological thing. I think that's quite a big area at the performance level. I think the physicality, I think depending on what level you play and stuff, that has a massive detriment on the performance levels. For example, the league I'm in now, there's actually quite a few players which I wouldn't say are physically fit at all, but in the level when I was at Burgess Hill, when you're watching that game and the players in that league, physically everyone's very athletic, everyone takes it very serious. So there's like a difference between levels at that performance level compared to the participation level. So the physical qualities is a massive thing, how athletic players are, especially position dependent. Fullbacks, wingers, strikers, they're very, very athletic. Not all strikers, because some of them are more hold-up players and stuff, but they're usually the players who are quite athletic. Psychologically, I think that's a good one, an area. I think psychologically, players, their mentality, I think the older players within that performance level, their mentality, that winning mentality, confidence levels, everyone's very self-confident with themselves. As the higher you get, everyone backs themselves more. So I don't know, you might play players in your leagues now, the level you guys play at, and the participation, some people might have a good week and then the next week they might make a mistake and they lose their confidence. At the performance level where people are getting paid and stuff at a higher level, self-confidence, more people back themselves, so they're psychologically, their self-confidence is I've seen that's a massive difference between other people. Even if they make a mistake, it doesn't, not always, it still does, but I think the higher the level, it doesn't affect them as much, or you don't see it as consistently. You still see good performances and stuff. Skill attributes, I think that's dependent on position, but I think for me, using me as an example, I think in my position now, I think the variation of passing. So you guys, the video analysis you guys watched was on a 3G pitch, which that was actually quite a good game of football for that level in terms of passing, which probably some of you might be a bit shocked with. If you actually watch one of the games on grass and on the pitches what are played on, all boggy and stuff on a Tuesday night and stuff like that, the football is a lot worse. So you need to be able to have long distance pinging, being able to clip the balls around the corner and stuff. So in terms of your range of passing, I'd say that's an important thing. I think just your awareness as well. I don't know, that's not really a skill attribute, but I think as that position, as a centre mid, your awareness is really important, because physically players are a lot bigger than you. So if you're not aware of what's around you and playing off minimal touches in the centre mid area, you're going to get smashed. They're not going to hold back and only tap you. They're going to go through you. So you've got to have that awareness around you, having that picture, that vision in your head before you receive the ball. I'd probably say they're probably some key ones. Otherwise I could keep going on. I think, they're probably the key ones from those different areas.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a question on that, Mike. Being in the performance level in the middle, you've got people that have come from the elite level coming back down, who are obviously a little bit older, and people coming from participation level coming up. What are the key differences between the two types of players? And can you tell that early on, sort of thing, when you're playing with them?
Reading the game's the biggest one. They can, especially as like you said there, at the elite level, they're going to be slightly older when they come down to performance level. So they might not have the legs what they used to, but they read the game so much better than everyone else. So they just understand the game, which is a massive difference between the participation and the elite level difference when they do come to the performance level is being able to read the game. I think they're so much more consistent. So what you'll see is I think the participation players, when they move up, they got loads of potential and stuff, but they're not very consistent. So they might have one good game and then they might have 3 bad games. When players from the higher levels drop down, they will be playing that 3 games at the same level every week. They're very consistent. So they're big things what I found what were different. And I think just the confidence within themselves, even though I do think from both levels, I think you see players come in and out from the elite level and the participation level where their confidence is still, they're very self-confident. But I think the biggest thing for me is that consistency level. That's the biggest difference is, and I think that's why players play at the elite level. The ability, a few players at my level have come on loan from professional clubs. So they've come from professional clubs on loan to gain the first team experience. Their technical ability is no better than any player in our team, really. So I would be the same technical ability as them, but the main difference would be is their consistency. So they can play like that week in, week out, and that's why they're at the level. However, when I've seen elite players from a professional academy who are younger, trying to get experience, come down to non-league level, I would say 95% of them can't handle it because they're so used to the style of football at the academy where it's like you have it, we have it, and it's very laid back. So when they come into non-league football and the pitches aren't the same and it's very competitive, they struggle. But yeah, that's how I would sum it up, Dan.
Yeah, really good, like that. On that point, Younes has got questions or a question about preparation. Younes.
Yeah. How do you prepare for the game, like personally, and what was the warm up like when you obviously with the team?
So back then, when that game was, so on the analysis of that game and everything, because of like what the stakes were of being able to play at the ground and everything, but also in general, I take it very serious. I think especially back then, I took it more serious than potentially I would say I do now. But back then, my preparation would have been on point. So, for example, I think the day before, I would have probably gone to the gym and I would have done like a light gym session in terms of like a little bike ride, and I would have done loads of mobility and foam rolling and stuff. Maybe a light jog just to get the blood flowing and stuff, but have a really good stretch. That evening, I probably would have had another stretch. So I would have done more mobility. I might have had a bath to warm up my muscles, then like have a stretch and everything. In terms of my nutrition and my hydration, I would have probably drunk 4 or 5 litres of water the day before, which I do normally. My food intake would have been more carbohydrate loading. So because of energy and stuff, I would have bulked up overload on carbs, so loads of carbohydrates. I probably would have had 3 or 4 meals a day before. On the day of the game, first thing I do when I wake up every morning is I have water. So I have a bottle of water by my bed every morning. So I have that. I don't want to say exactly what it is, but Dan's told me before of what the benefits are of having water in the morning and stuff. And ever since, I've always done it. And then that morning, I would have just been carb loading. So loads of carbs, getting the protein in as well. In relation to the warm-up, the warm-ups aren't very specific to the game. So the warm-up would have been all playing really short in tight areas of possession and stuff. But then you go into the match and you guys have analysed the game. It goes into long ball. So I personally don't think the warm-ups always translate into the actual game. And I think I've had that experience loads of times at non-league clubs. What you do in the warm-up doesn't resemble what you do in the game. So I find that quite hard psychologically to transfer over. So in terms of that, I think our warm-up wasn't great, but you sort of get used to it and you just have to adapt because you don't know any different, but you don't get any difference. You just got to deal with it. But in terms of the things I could control was my nutrition and stuff. Yeah, I would have loads of carbs and hydrate really well. Then straight away afterwards, high protein to recover.
Excellent, good question. Kareem, you've got a question.
Yeah, so how would you say you motivate yourself like the day of the match? Like how would you motivate yourself to like get in like the mood for a match?
I think it's probably just when I told you about the context of the game of being able to play at the final, I think that motivates you yourself. but I also think having the fans there. So because it was like a county cup semi-final, a lot of people were there. I think I don't know. There was, I mean, the ground restricts how many people go to, but there was probably 500 or 600 people there. So naturally, you can self-motivate yourself that way because there's a lot of people watching you. So if you're not switched on, you're sort of going to embarrass yourself in front of all those people. So I think when you play in front of fans, and I've actually found this, I think the more fans you play in front of, the more switched on I am, and actually more motivated I am, and more confident I am. It's a weird one. Whereas if I play a game and there's only 50 people or there are 100 people, I find it harder to motivate myself. And I actually am not always concentrated as much. Whereas when I played in the final and played in those games where there's over 1,000 people there and stuff, you motivate yourself. You just naturally motivate yourself and you're concentrated just because of the occasion, but also the amount of people watching, and you're just so focused. So I find it easier when there's more people there because you can, I don't know, that's your sport. You enjoy your sport and you think you're good at your sport, so you've got to back yourself.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Talking about the growth mindset of an athlete, and that's the difference, isn't it? Like if you're a positive thinker, you're always going to find positive outcomes. If you're a negative thinker, it's going to be the same. So those people that think they can and those that think they can't are normally probably right. Now we're going to conclude, Mike. Thanks for your time. We've got one more question from Alex, and then you're free to go. Alex.
Yeah. Can you rate your performance out of 10 for the match and tell us why?
Okay, yeah. So sort of touched on it earlier. I would rate my personal performance different to probably how the team performance was, just because of the objectives and what we were meant to do. So personally, the way I played, I don't think I played amazing. I think for the way, if you guys watched the whole season and stuff, potentially the way we played was more football based. That game there was probably more passing than it usually is. So that suited me more and I could get on the ball and play. So I thought overall my ball retention was okay on my performance, and also probably put my positioning out of possession, organising the other midfielders, I felt was quite confident. So whenever I wasn't getting dragged out of position too much, I was sort of in front of the back four of what I needed to do. So personal performance, it was okay, but I think I probably, for the team and the objectives of the team, I actually had quite a good game, because the objectives were to be effective and be quite direct and hit the ball into the corner, because their back line was stiff and our forwards are quite fast and athletic. So I kept putting the ball in behind round the corners and stuff, which was effective. On the ball, I kept it simple when I needed to. I weren't trying to beat too many players, because if I did lose the ball, they're straight onto our back line. I felt I organised our team and stuff like that. So out of possession, I kept us compact. I was dragging people in and stuff. So in relation to the objectives of our match and how our manager wanted us to play, my performance was quite good. I had quite a solid performance in terms of what I needed to do and what I was told to do, in terms of just putting the ball into the corners and stuff and organising people. But a personal performance of how I would like to play and stuff, I don't think I got on the ball enough. And how I see myself as playing effective, I don't think I was as effective. But in terms of the manager and the non-league way of football, I was effective by hitting the ball into the channels. Where I'd rather, in my performance, I'd rather just dictate play and get on the ball and play through the thirds and hit diags and stuff like that with high ball retention, with a purpose. But in non-league, it's different.
What would you rate yourself out of 10?
I would say a 7.
Okay, thank you. Love.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Alex. Really good question. A 7 out of 10. We'd all like to be our own critic, wouldn't we? Good stuff, Mike. Really appreciate your time. Gentlemen, good questions. Well done. What we'll do is we'll put this up as a link, and all you need to do is put the link onto your worksheets. Well done, chaps. Well done.